Welcome back to the Difference Engine podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Oaks. If you think you've gone too far, you haven't gone far enough. That was something my friend John said to me today in a conversation back and forth. He's a coach too. And we were talking about what it takes to break through critical mass, what it takes to affect massive action. Often, as humans, our emotions, perceptions, our biases lie to us and tell us that we should feel a certain way about a certain thing. Where this gets really fun and interesting is in sales and business specifically. I have a background in years and years of sales, multiple different companies, millions of dollars in revenue earned, and it's very much like a sport. It is really like a sport. And business is really like sales with more things built on the dashboard. There's more things to monitor, more things to be attentive to, more plates spinning, more emotions involved than just your own because you have a team as well. So if you can think of business as a sport, a game, and sales as a game, that's really helped me a lot in my career as a salesperson and then as a coach. If you could imagine playing an entire basketball game or football game or hockey match, baseball season now, right? And never look at the score. Imagine a whole roster of players on the field or on the ice, all with an idea of the score in their head, but no real clear picture, no clear idea. So multiple people on your team on the field at once, if you're the coach of the team, i.e. the owner of the business, are all in the field trying to accomplish something, trying to win the game, trying to make something happen, and they're not even all agreed quite on what the score probably is because they can't see it. That would make the game really hard. If you don't have ways to measure, to know specifically where you're at, then you cannot counteract the emotion, the doubt, the highs and lows, the misgivings you have or the bad days. All those things bombard you, but they're not the scoreboard. So if you're driving, the same thing happens for a GPS. It was John's example today. Was oftentimes before the world of GPS, before your phone told you everywhere to go, we had these things called maps. They were paper. And you only glanced at them every so often, and you didn't really glance at them while you were driving. They were much harder to read while driving than a phone is. If you had in your head a mental image of where you were trying to get to already, it looks very different on the map than it does in real life. The landmarks look different. They're not direct comparisons. You might think that you've already passed the place you were trying to get to or taken a wrong turn. But often what he would say on road trips is if you feel like you've gone too far, you haven't gone far enough. And the exact conversation this came out of was sales. Was when I got into coaching, I had years of sales under my belt, years of sales. And my perception and awareness of what was enough had been trained through hundreds, if not thousands of repetitions. So I know intrinsically in my body what feels like momentum in selling, what feels like momentum in business, because I have the pacing sort of inherent to my mindset now. Where things get tough for business owners is when they get into business without that built into them yet, when they think I'm good at XYZ skill, I'm good at cutting hair, or I'm good at building decks, and so I'll be in business. Your main function initially is marketing and sales. You have to close business. And without having any kind of perception of how that feels, how much is enough momentum, how much activity you have to generate, how many calls, how many billboards, how many whatever you have to put out there to get that attention, to get those deals in your pipeline, to get your phone ringing. If you don't know what that is, you are flying blind. I mean, you have to have those numbers at least generically figured out from other businesses or calculations or a break-even point you've worked on, because feeling will not get you there. Feeling will not get you there. And I shared with John this story I was a swimmer in high school, and swimming is a really lonely sport. It's very boring. You pretty much never get to hear anyone cheer for you because you're underwater, and your practice is mostly underwater, and you can't even talk to your friends. It's not even like cross country or other sports where you're like taking turns running an event or pole vaulting or in timeouts or huddles. You're just underwater for most of the time. So it's a solitary sport in a lot of ways. And my junior to senior year, going into my senior year of high school, I went to a swim camp at a D1. I wasn't D1, but it was a D1 school. They actually had Olympians. They had an Olympian come talk to us from that school, and they had Olympian coaches there. And our practice was 2 hours of swimming in the morning, 1 hour of calisthenics, push-ups, sit-ups, squats, stadiums in the afternoon, and then another 2 hours of swimming in the afternoon. So it was 5 hours of working out a day. And at 16 years old, that was definitely the most I'd ever worked out in a day. And I was athletic. I mean, I was in pretty good shape. That was a whole new standard for me. Running stadiums in a D1 college arena was wild. And the hardest part of it was the mentality because it was so solitary, and the pool that we were in, you could not even put your feet down in it. It was an Olympic grade pool with bulkheads in it. So you had to put your arm in the drain. There was a gutter, and about 8 feet above that was the deck. So you never touched the deck and you never touched the bottom because it was so deep. So for 4 hours a day, you were just suspended in this pool, and your resting from these sets was you're hanging in a pool gutter, not your arms keeping you up. So you're panting and heaving, and there's only so much room on the wall. You're sitting next to other people who are panting and heaving, and then you go again, and then you go again, and then you go again, and you go again. And we were so tired, we didn't really talk anyway. And you quit checking the clock. Like day 2, I felt my spirit break because you just quit looking at the clock because it was miserable. You just made the time go slower. That I dropped time in my races at that swim camp. And I came back to a team full of people who had only ever had their standard as an hour or an hour and 15 minutes of practice 4 days a week, 5 days a week. Man, everything felt so much easier after that. I changed my perception of what was hard drastically, and I swam a lot faster because of it. And I can't remember there being now, I didn't live in a giant county. There wasn't a ton of people, but I was the fastest in the county, and I attribute it to that swim camp. And I know I'm the fastest in the county because when we raced the championship between the 3 schools, the 3 local schools, I had walking pneumonia that day. I didn't know I had it. I just came down with it. I had a temperature of 104 the next day, and I still won the race. And I attribute that to the mental toughness of that swim camp I went to. So that goes back to if you feel like you haven't gone far enough, you probably haven't. If you feel like you've gone too far, you haven't gone far enough yet. I went far enough at that swim camp. The tough thing about being a business owner, being an adult, not even a business owner, being an adult is we don't really have accountability. No one comes to check on us, and no one makes us grow. No one even dictates what growing is to us. We get to decide. Most people are so under-challenged and so underwhelmed, they need their phone and TV and food and all kinds of things to medicate their boredom.